Today we're doing something a little bit different. A few weeks ago, I ran a writing workshop for a group of aspiring writers who'd never written a single word before, much less a novel, but they wanted to. And so we went through a series of exercises for getting story ideas and developing those ideas into full-blown premises with character and plot. We did it in about an hour. Now it's very basics, but it is my process for how I take an idea and start trying to fully and officially flesh it out on paper. I think it's a really fun process. It's a really fun video to watch. This is a class, so you're watching the entire class, you're watching the interactions with the different students. We can call them students. They were just kind of friends. Included a few of the interactions, not all of the stories, otherwise it would have been so long. So you can just listen and enjoy. You can do the exercises alongside us. You can take them and make notes and then apply them later. I really hope you get a lot out of this. It was so fun. It made me even more passionate about telling stories and helping other people tell their stories as well. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have fun. I hope you're reminded to be creative and imaginative, and let's get to that class. Also, we do get progressively more wine drunk as the video goes on. How to write a book Skillshare.
Oh my gosh, that's so intimidating.
Yeah. All right. So
I'm really excited.
I have a little presentation that I usually do with this, so I'll go through part of it. But I think what would be fun and what would be what I love and what I'm passionate about, is so many people when you say you've written a book, they're like, oh, I want to do that. Mm-hmm. And not very many people ever do. And I think that is kind of sad because there's so many wonderful, cool stories that we could be telling. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just a really fun thing. It's an amazing accomplishment. Even if you never get something like that published, then you have it. And it's something that you created. And I think it's awesome. And I can adjust based on people's interest. So let's start with just a question. You emojied my Skillshare. So does anybody has anyone ever had a book idea?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
Gorgeous. Yes. Okay. Are these book ideas fiction or nonfiction?
Nonfiction for me.
Fiction.
Mostly nonfiction for me.
Okay.
Both.
Love
Okay.
this.
Very cool. And for those nonfiction folks, are you thinking of what kind of nonfiction?
Well, okay, so a lot of people are like, you should write a book, autobiography.
Yeah.
Because they think it's and I'm like, it's not that interesting. And they're like, no, really. So it makes me think maybe I should just start and see what comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, I like that. I like that a lot.
My dream scenario is like a Mary Roach. You ever read her? It's she does more pop science stuff.
Oh, cool.
But I like the idea of taking a topic and getting to really deep dive into it, and meeting people, and then putting it into some type of narrative.
Ooh,
Yes,
I love that.
Self-help to some degree.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That'd be really good.
Okay, very cool.
That's a great idea.
So, I've never written anything nonfiction, but written quite a bit of fiction. And so I think that what I have planned here works well for anything fiction and memoir, and might just be fun for nonfiction, but there might be things that can be applied. Okay, so here's the little speechy bit. This is a Skillshare card called How to Write a Book, but nobody can actually teach you how to write a book because there's no one way to do it. So no matter what writing advice you ever hear, in fact, the most important writing advice you should heed is that no writing advice is universally correct. For every single piece you have, there will be someone who is very successful who did not do that or who did it differently. There's also no right way to write a book. There's no fast way, there's no hacky way, and there's no foolproof way. So there will be lots of courses and craft books that are the only thing you'll ever need, and it's not true. Mm-hmm. I've read probably over a dozen craft books at this point, taking courses, dozens of YouTube videos, all that kind of thing. And there's still always stuff to learn. Most professional writers, they still are learning and hearing stuff about craft. And you forget stuff too. Mm-hmm. So and this is one of the things that I think is most important in at least a fiction book, probably in a memoir as well. The thing that is the best for creating conflict, the core rule in my mind of fiction is somebody has to want something at all times, and it has to be concrete enough where the reader can know when they got it and when they didn't.
I see.
That is the most core rule, and I forget it all the time. So very quickly, my journey in books is I've written, technically it's like 6 full-length books. I kind of count 4 of them, but in high school I wrote this fantasy book. Technically I wrote it twice. I wrote the first draft and then started with the second. In university I wrote this like dystopian YA thing that I wrote in notebooks in the car on my commute, which sounds like really exciting and a great origin story, except for the fact that it was notebooks plural, and so like it was like the back half of that notebook and the front 30 pages of that, and so I don't even think I could find the book, much less edit it. In 2019, I actually started being serious, so I wrote a historical fiction book in 2019-2020. In 2020, I wrote a YA contemporary book. The book that I'm working on now, that I'm working on querying, is a YA action adventure, and it's very funny. I have my word counts laid out here. It was like the first draft was 70,000, then it went to 68, then 96, then 75. It's currently at 85. And then I just finished another 6th book. That's a YA like Christmas book. Okay. Yes. So when you're writing a book, there are lots of inflection points, I guess, in sort of like how I mentally classify writers in my brain when I meet them. It's like, okay, you haven't started, but you want to. There's people who've started a book. Then there's people who've finished a book. And literally just going from the I want to the finishing, you have like a massive funnel like that. Because it's tricky. You know, there's a lot of words to get down, and it does require some amount of like discipline and determination to be like, I am going to finish this. After you finish it, that's sort of one inflection point. When you get to rewriting and revising, that's when you can actually, in my opinion, become a really good writer. I hate drafting. I hate writing the book the first time, but everything is made for me, and the rewriting and the revising, probably too much because I just rewrite everything. The next inflection point is feedback. And then the next inflection point is, rewriting based on feedback and polishing. So at this point, we're going to do a fun exercise. And you don't have to like stick with this for the rest of the time. It's just for fun. Because I think it illustrates well, like, here, I'm just going to flop these around. I think it illustrates well, like, what a book, okay, this is not done well, what a book idea is. So, does everybody have a pen? Okay. So
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to do this really quick. So the idea is to write on a slip of paper the first thing that comes to mind. If something doesn't come to mind, just don't write anything, because there's a couple here. And then we're just, So first thing to come to mind is place. We're all nomads, so I've tailored it. Place where you've had your biggest travel disaster happen. It's okay. There's another one here that won't click properly.
There you go.
Okay. Next one is place where you've had an epic adventure. And it doesn't have to be, it can be as specific or as broad as you want it to be. Okay. Next one is a hobby or like talent you have or wish you could have. I think hobby works well. Do ping pong. Oh my God, that's perfect.
Wait, say that one more time.
A hobby you have or wish you could have.
Hobby, okay.
Next one is any random historical event or period.
Anytime.
Anytime, anywhere. It could be 3 days ago. Historical event or time period.
What about place and place as well, or just time?
Just the time.
Just the time or like the event. So it could be, I don't know, the nuclear bomb in Hiroshima, or it could be like, I don't know, the
1996.
fall of the Berlin Wall, or it could also be 1996.
Okay.
Yeah. Event or like a time period.
Time period.
It could be Regency. It could be pioneers. Or it could be very specific,
Okay.
like the election of Barack Obama, like those things, you know?
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, got it.
Okay, there's only a couple more. A trait you find really annoying in other people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so easy. I think of that one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, easy.
I love it. Okay.
Next one is a trait you love about yourself or a friend. Next is favorite TV show.
Current favorite.
Yeah.
Or past favorite.
Past favorite.
Doesn't matter.
So it's a favorite show?
A favorite TV show or movie. Like, I'm not super picky here. And the very last one is think of a classic, like saying or platitude or whatever. Like, be careful what you wish for, or don't judge a book by its cover. And write down one of those.
Now I can only think of those.
I'm so sorry. Oh, proverb. That's what it is.
So any kind of saying or platitude.
Any kind of saying.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Does it have to be a real one, or can it be like
No.
something that you've heard growing up?
Or Renee
It-
Classic.
It can be whatever you
Yeah,
want.
Renee's from the South.
And then
Real.
just toss in here.
Okay.
I like it.
Oh, do other people have to read them? Because
This will
Yeah.
be really interesting.
my
Wait a
handwriting
minute.
is terrible.
Here we are.
Okay, cool.
Stole
So
your pen.
just for a few minutes, because it's just for fun, and you can take this or not, but what we're gonna do is grab, I don't know, 3 or 4. So I'm just gonna grab 3 random ones. COVID. That's funny. Okay. I keep getting the annoying ones.
What if those were the things we liked about ourselves? Talks over others.
It's a good skill.
Okay, I found a good one. Okay. So I have here, I grabbed 5, that's fine. Okay, I grabbed Fiji, COVID, closed-minded, talking incessantly about oneself, and I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission. You'll see I went through and was picky about it because that's fine. There's no rules. But basically, what we've done is we've gotten, with these, theoretically some sense of character. So someone who's talking incessantly about themselves but is also closed-minded. We've gotten some sense of a setting here, Fiji, which is fun. We've gotten some sense of like a premise or situation or maybe a plot point, which is COVID. And we have either like premise, plot point, or theme. I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission. And so I could take these if I wanted to and come up with a story idea for these. So I have someone who is extremely closed-minded who gets stuck in Fiji during COVID, or no. They're extremely closed-minded and they are, they don't want to be in COVID anymore. And so they decide to lie their way to Fiji, asking forgiveness rather than permission and making up all sorts of crazy stories in order to get there so they can spend the rest of their pandemic there. And they unfortunately end up with someone who will not leave them alone, who will not stop talking about themselves as their travel companion through this adventure.
Great.
That's my story idea. So I'm going to put these back, and the idea is you can share or not, but just for fun, go through, pick a couple, see what you can think of, and then we'll use those for kind of the rest of the Skillshare. Or you can, if you have your own story idea, you can definitely do that But this is just for fun.
Do you do this like when you're kind of coming up with like characters and stuff, or do you need like if you need
No.
inspiration? Okay, so this is just to get
Not
like,
really.
an idea.
Sometimes. So the thing that I think is interesting about like books, right, is I don't think a book idea, like people is like, where did you get the idea for the book? And there's always like a kernel of an idea, but actually going into a book is like, I don't know, like a few hundred ideas, right? Because you have to have an idea for every scene, like where are they? What are they doing? For all the characters, like how do I get these interesting people? What are these situations? Like different settings. So there's all sorts of little ones. So I will do this or like do something like a random trait generator or a random like scenario generator online if I get stuck and I like need something, you know.
Well, that's
Yeah.
a good idea. I like it. Is it 5? I think I took 6, so hang on. I'll put back one. So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Humor.
And if you happen to pull all that, like you can be picky if you happen to pull just like all character ones.
yeah, I took some of the last ones by accident.
What would you do with the show one?
Yeah, I would do pretty much anything I wanted. Like,
Just use it as like
Um,
inspo.
yeah, so it could be like, oh, I don't know much about Arrested Development, but like, say it was Downton Abbey. I'm like, okay, maybe I want to do like an upstairs, downstairs sort of vibe, or like, maybe I really like the idea of focusing on a family. Maybe I like the time period.
Got it.
Just anything in that you think is interesting. Another reason why the TV show is in there, and you could do it with like a book or something, is that a lot of times when you're pitching a book to publishers, to audiences, they do comps, right? So this is X meets Y, right? So I don't know, I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head right now, but there was it's hard to come up with. But like my book, for example, is Ocean's 11 meets like Love and Gelato, which is like a YA romance book where they go to Italy and fall in love. That's an example. Or things like that. And so it can be like having your comp. Sometimes your idea will be, what if I just mash these two things together, right?
Got it.
Yeah. So that's where TV shows and things come in handy. Sweet. All right. Okay, so do we want to do the full like share thing of like what do you have and like what are you thinking?
Sure.
Let's do it. Let's make it fun.
Okay, I really don't know how I'm gonna put these things together yet, but
That's okay.
I have good listener, sense of humor, mahjong, Peru, Machu Picchu / coca leaves, you reap what you sow, and the Arrested Development.
I was gonna do The Office.
So I don't know that much about Arrested Development, but I think it's like about dysfunctional like families. Yeah. Okay. So I was thinking maybe it's like maybe there's like humor, this like a quirky kind of person that ends up on some adventure where you reap what you sow is a bit about like having to accept the consequences of something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they like have too many coca leaves or something, and they end up on this wild adventure trying to get to Machu Picchu. But it's like under the guise of why they're there in the first place is to escape some type of dysfunction.
Okay.
I don't know how mahjong's
You're a mahjong gambling addict.
Oh.
You know? Like, have you heard of it?
Wow, I like
Is
this.
that a gambling game?
I don't know.
Ooh.
It could be.
We can make it a gambling
If you were
game.
really high on cocoa leaves, and you were a gambling addict in general, you could turn anything into
Yeah.
gambling.
This could be like the Chinese cocaine exporters in Peru or something.
That's yours, isn't it?
Mm.
Did you mahjong me?
I did.
I felt like it was yours. The mahjong. Cute.
Anyway,
Okay.
something there.
I like that. So you're thinking, I'm trying to pull out something of like
Yeah,
genre. So
please
we had a
do.
love story over here, and we have almost like what you're describing almost sounds like kind of like an epic, like your
Yeah.
classic adventure, like going on the road trying to get to a destination.
Yes.
One of the interesting things with that genre is since if you are on a journey, right, you get little bits of conflict as they encounter obstacles, but it can be difficult to have like a sustained central conflict throughout the whole thing. So I wonder if your Mahjong or your Arrested Development comp or something like that could be like the baseline throughout, you know, and then they come up with obstacles in the way. I'm just not trying to overtake this idea here.
Something like that. Or like I'm thinking about all my friends that have done the Inca Trail, and they come back and tell me about like the little group that they did the Inca Trail with. Like maybe that could be like a dysfunctional cast of characters.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. That's
that
cool.
play mahjong at night.
I love that someone's just bringing mahjong like all the way to Machu Picchu on the Inca Trail.
The travel side, you know, the mission travel side.
I love it. Sweet. Yeah. I see that connecting.
Yeah, great. Okay, mine are As Jesus Christ Says.
What?
Talking about themselves nonstop. The Plains of South Africa, camping, painting, and the Netherlands airport.
Oh.
Disaster.
So, I mean, I feel like it's hard to put these ones together, but I think like, I can see the As Jesus Christ Says and talking about themselves nonstop, like coming together so easily.
Oh,
You know that person.
yes.
I know that person very well. There's just like, yeah, I feel like sometimes, like the old preacher vibe has this like very inflated like view of themselves, but they use it through the guise of like what Jesus, like the Bible or whatever. And so like I can see that being a really interesting person to be like in the plains of South Africa camping. So that would be, I think, that would be a very interesting context for that kind of person, because I think they would be struggling with like trying, like dealing, like if they were struggling in the plains, like camping, like personally, but then they also have this idealistic view of themselves where they're supposed to be like higher than this world or something. I think they would like really like those two things together would really like be interesting conflict in that place. I don't know about painting. I just think I can also see a contrast of like someone being a painter, and that would be a very different type of person than like this preacher type. If they were on the same camping trip, someone just trying to paint, and then they have this like person trying to talk at them. I think that'd be interesting. I don't know how the airport in the Netherlands would tie.
You don't have to use everything if you don't want to.
Yeah, good point.
Maybe they get stuck there on the way back.
Or on the way there, that's how they meet.
Oh yeah,
You have to go through Amsterdam for weird
that's
shit.
true. That's very true. Yeah.
Or even the
Especially with Delta.
painter could have like used the other guy as a drug mule.
Ooh.
Wow.
So are we thinking like a love story?
The drug mule conflict will have to come up. They'll have to overcome that.
A drug mule conflict. I love it. Yeah.
So many conflicts, really, is what we have.
That's great. The more conflict, the better, right?
Yeah.
I just pulled a couple of other ones because this is so fun.
Yeah, this is
But what do I have? I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission. Schitt's Creek, love that. The It's Crowd, Grease, closed-minded and talking incessantly about oneself. And so I think this would be fun. I liked the Fiji one, but I actually am loving Schitt's Creek. So I feel like we have someone who's like has a lot of money, loses it all. Of course, they've purchased this small island in Greece, and then so they've got to go there. Maybe they've lost it all. Maybe there's just some other reason, and they decide to bring the It Crowd, I guess, their group of friends there with them, and maybe it's what kind of book should it be? Maybe it's like a rather ask for forgiveness than permission. Maybe they go off and like, I don't know, start building something on this island and it turns into a cult. Yeah. Because they're closed-minded.
yeah.
So yeah, they accidentally start a cult on a Greek island.
Yeah.
But it is accidentally, and they just get all of these people coming and coming and coming, and then they realize and they're like, oh shit, what do I do?
That's good.
Love it.
And they have to unmantle their cult. Okay.
Ooh.
So we have very exciting things here. So we can run with these, or if you had an idea that you've thought of before that you're like, this is the book that I would love to write, then you can switch to that. But we're gonna do like a few. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so we're gonna do a few quick exercises in how I would approach, or this is just me again, remember that disclaimer about writing advice at the beginning, taking something like this and then turning it into a book. There's lots of brainstorming. That's this phase, right? It's when you're trying to think of, okay, like, so what could the story be? Who could be in it? What could we be exploring? And the process is like, you flesh out, you evaluate. You flesh out, you evaluate. You flesh out, you evaluate. And then eventually you fleshed out enough that you have an outline to put it in really stupid, simple terms. And if any of you are interested in like more resources beyond this like initial phase, then I have tons of those I can send over. But we're going to do the initial phase. So what we have here are some great ideas. This is a hard sentence, so it's going to be a very imperfect sentence. But we're going to try to write a sentence that's like a premise for the idea, so helping us structure it. And this really helps us like center what the core of a story would be, right? So in Harry Potter, it's something like, when an orphan discovers he's a wizard, he must go off to, he goes off to Hogwarts, learns how to do magic, and then must defeat the greatest dark wizard of all time. It escalates rather quickly. But like the Hunger Games is when Katniss's sister is picked for the Hunger Games. She volunteers in her place and she must survive in the arena despite the fact that, someone who helped her out when she was a kid, she's going to have to kill. Something like that. Such a good, every time I read the book or watch the movie, I'm like sucked in immediately. Like it's yeah, that premise was amazing because it's just like visceral, right? Like immediately. Other ones like that, like when the guy in the Da Vinci Code finds somebody dead, he has to follow the clues in order to be not killed by the police and arrested by the police, right? So we have sort of a feeling of like when X happens. So like when our ordinary character, adjective noun, experiences, sees, blah, 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 some X, some sort of inciting incident, then action, and they must goal. So something like, what would I say mine is? So again, with the Harry Potter was when an orphan, there's our descriptive noun, finds out he's a wizard, that's our X. He goes to Hogwarts, that's our action, and must learn how to defeat the greatest wizard of all time, that's our goal.
If it's nonfiction or like a memoir, like it would be sort of the same idea.
Yeah. So
Like
okay.
to create like that interest.
Yeah, let's talk about this for a second. So I've never written a memoir, but I've listened to lots of podcasts about it. And so the thing about a memoir, obviously, is it's not an autobiography. So an autobiography, the goal is to cover an entire life. In a memoir, you want to focus on like sort of one idea or like one sort of theme that could cover a whole life, but you're not trying to be like just like biographical details.
Okay, that's helpful.
So something like what have I read that's good? Like the Michelle Obama one, Becoming, is obviously focused on like really her as a person and her relationship and how it evolved over becoming a president. That's a little bit more broad. Something like Wild was focusing on that one journey. So it can be really challenging to think of like a one theme, but you do want to have something of a through line. So maybe there's not one like incredibly specific goal, but I think the biggest challenge with memoir or even like writing a family story is that you feel like you want to cover all of this ground, but the problem is like there has to be narrative drive. Yeah. You have to think of yourself as a protagonist. Yeah. So saying something to the effect of, okay, when this catalyst happened, then blah, and they must goal, like at the very least it gives you that sort of structure of the narrative going forward.
Okay, got it. I mean, it makes sense to me. I just thought I'd check, but yeah.
Yeah, and then I just rambled, so sorry.
No, it's super helpful.
Okay.
Do you guys think you'd want a second round of rosé?
Ooh.
Why not?
I would have a bit of rosé.
Why not?
We all made the girl noise. Ooh.
That's a definite no for all of them.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
If you
I'll
would like to
maybe
share.
just get new glasses so we don't have to rinse them.
I can use mine.
Yeah, I've just poured in
Do
there.
you
want
Being fancy.
Well, if I'm having rosé, I probably don't want more red.
Okay.
It's in the freezer, so I need to grab it.
My sentence is very long.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, same.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Natasha, did you want some or? I brought you a glass so you can
well,
make your
since it's
decision.
here, maybe a
It's
little
here.
teeny bit.
I don't
I'm excited to
pressure
drink,
you.
but I'll chug my water first. Thank you.
No problem.
Excited to read my book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree.
Unless you're keeping it kind of more under wraps, Michaela, I'm curious about your fiction book. Like, what genre you're thinking?
Oh, I mean, totally just preliminary idea, but like, I was thinking, I mean, it's so interesting being like a digital nomad that I thought it would be like interesting to have like a story that is based on like our lifestyle and what that looks like. And I haven't gotten much past that. But I feel like it's interesting because I feel like an interesting perspective would be like the single woman's like
Yeah.
place, but obviously I've never been a single woman of that, so it's
Well, then you can be the married couple, the married woman. That's still interesting.
You're welcome to
Yeah.
interview me.
Yeah. And I think you definitely have the insight of like, as a woman, like if you were a guy trying to write as a single woman, digital nomad, it might be harder. But you can like totally put yourself in the place of, and you have so many friends who are doing this single.
Amy Suda's writing Nomad Detective, so she's like turning into a detective series. So you
Yeah.
could do like
She has a series of short stories, I think.
yes,
That's coming out in August.
so you could do
Really
like
cool.
a typical genre but nomad style or something.
yeah. I feel like I definitely don't have like a through line.
Yeah.
Like what is the main like conflict or I just feel like everyone's trying to find themselves in some way. But I don't know like
Yes.
what it would be particularly. Right now I'm just working on my preacher in South Africa.
Okay. Back to your mega church romance.
It almost gives me. Have you ever seen There Will Be Blood?
No.
Yes.
That kind of gives me that kind of vibe with like the preacher guy.
Mm.
Anyway,
It's
if you
intense.
haven't seen it,
Is
but
he a cult leader or?
kind of yes, yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
in like the planes and stuff, so it's kind of like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't like this
You don't like it?
story. Yeah.
You can change it.
It's just an exercise. You don't have to actually write it.
Longest sentence ever.
Mine is extremely long too. Don't
Mine's
worry.
more of a book jacket than a sentence.
About
I
the
love
author.
it. About it. It's awesome. I mean, if you really hate it, change it.
It's okay. I think it's good for the exercise.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let's end it.
Ah.
How intense can we get?
As intense as you would like to be.
Full intensity. Yeah.
Okay. You did say up the stakes, so
Yeah, up the
Ooh,
stakes.
can't wait to hear it.
All right, let's go in reverse order. Choo, this way.
Okay.
You have to start
your
somewhere.
When our preacher, our collective preacher, needs to give up their principles and sense of religious self to survive a camping trip that went wrong in South Africa, he has to come to terms with his sense of guilt when returning home. And I was thinking maybe the camping trip could be the 9 Perfect Strangers vibe, if you ever read that book.
Yeah.
And then went wrong could include the affair with the painter and also the drug dealing.
Ooh, okay. So I was gonna say, like, why does the camping trip challenge his morals? But it would be like
There's also got to be like some survival thing that happens where
yeah.
They get
all
chased
of
by
a
a
sudden
lion.
they have to survive.
Yes.
Ooh.
Anything's interesting.
Okay, love it.
I feel like mine's kind of vague now, but
That's okay.
when a quirky mahjong champion loses their first tournament, they impulsively join a group of misfits hiking the Inca Trail and are thrust into a series of unforeseen challenges that culminate in a self-revelation about identity, success, and the beauty of losing it all.
Wow.
I love
I want to read it.
love to read.
I'm gonna have to learn how to play mahjong.
You can learn online real quick.
What I loved about that one, and you guys did it too, is like so specific of like when X happened. And you can see both like in that one particularly how like, okay, so the internal and the external, right? Because in a story there's always like your external plot, which is I'm going to hike the Inca Trail. But there's also like the internal journey, of course. Right. And if you have like a big failure, and yours had it as well with the journey of like confronting the morals and stuff that doesn't agree with them and etc. But like you see how like in that one inciting incident, there 2 things are tied together. Like my internal sense of self and who I am and like blah, blah, blah is like gone. And it makes me go on this external thing. So having them tied together from the start is really, really cool.
All right, well, cheers to that not actually happening.
Yes!
Oh my gosh, this is so fun! We're all inspired now.
Yes.
Okay.
This is great.
Mine is when a rich girl's deceased father only leaves her a remote island in Greece in his will, she discovers she's inherited a cult. In order to take the island back and reclaim her inheritance for herself, she must get the close-minded Instagram hippie it group to realize they've been brainwashed and leave her island, except the elusive reclusive leader of the cult catches her interest and her heart.
Already. I'm just gonna read it. It's so exciting.
Honestly,
I want that life.
I do kind of like this.
New book's out now. She's gonna work on it.
Great.
I mean, I know you probably have more coming, but later, I was wondering if we could go back to the part where you listed like the different steps of like
Yeah.
this, and then
Yeah.
like, the redraft or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I didn't write it down, but I want to.
How much longer do we want to spend here?
As much time as you have. I know you're trying to go to bed before you have
Okay.
meetings, too.
So if we want to keep going a little bit with this, that's okay. I'm good to because obviously I would just post it in Slack if you wanted to continue on it. But let's do a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Excuse me.
let's start with character. Okay. So we're going to take what we have and we're going to ask ourselves basically, okay, so I like to think of character as, there's a few different ways to think of character, right? So there's the classic, which is from like the hero's journey, which is kind of like the archetype way of thinking of a character.
Okay.
And again, millions of archetypes. You could look at cards. What are those cards called? The ones that you draw and they give you predictions. Tarot cards. Like the tarot cards, you could do something like, there's kind of roles in the story. So there's like the hero, the mentor, the threshold guardians, the herald who comes and tells you, it's Gandalf is the herald. He's like, hey, go on an adventure. Same with Hagrid. There's things like that. Or there's things like just sort of your role, like the mother, the queen, the king, the joker, the thief. You think of sort of different things like that. Or there's even bits of a group, right? Like every group, if we think of like, I don't know, every group tends to have like a leader, a nurturer, a wild child, and someone who like doesn't give a shit and like tells them like what the deal is. And so there's like that way of thinking of characters. So giving a role. And then there's something else, like something interesting about them, something that maybe sparks something in our mind. Not very good at giving concrete examples of this, but for example, I have a mastermind thief who's extremely girly and wears heels to all of her heists, right? So we want to have sort of an archetype or role, something contradictory, and then something that they want. So I would say for this exercise, let's try to think of a main character. We don't necessarily need to name them unless you really want to, but we want to think of like, what kind of role archetype thing would they be? What's something that is unexpected about that, basically? Like you wouldn't expect a type A violinist, for example, to, I don't know, there's a couple with her, but like, say she went to the police about something and she snitched on someone, or you wouldn't expect them to you wouldn't expect a prodigy to fail. You wouldn't expect a master thief to do everything in heels. That's impractical. That's stupid. Stuff like that. So sort of role archetype, something slightly unexpected in it, and then we just want to pull out of our premise, and everybody had it. What do they want?
Okay.
3 things. Okay. We getting close to being ready to share.
Okay, so mine is the Mahjong champion, a young prodigy who's tied their identity to winning, but struggles to make friends because of their single-mindedness. But their twist is that they have like a wicked sense of humor and keen observations of others.
Nice.
And so I put what she thinks she wants and then what she actually wants, because I think that's kind of the key.
That's great,
twist.
yeah.
So what she thinks she wants is to escape the embarrassment and get her head back in the game to be a champion again. But what she actually wants is connection, belonging, identity beyond the game, or a direction for her life that losing can't usurp.
Madeline, you are incredible because you intuited the most important thing about characters in fiction, which is you have your want, which drives your story, but then you have your need. That's your internal story. That's what the character actually needs and doesn't know it. It's that self-conscious thing.
Wow.
So you have your want, which is the external driver, and you have the need. And in a story, the character could get what they want and what they need. They could get just what they need and not what they want. Sing the song. They could get neither if it's a bad arc, but there's something. So, for example, the more you dig into character, you'll also hear about want, need, and misbelief or lie. So your character's misbelief or lie is something to the effect of, like, if I am not a Mahjong championship, I am nothing. Like, it's something to that effect, right? You would refine it. And so when you get down to, this is a lot of things, but when you get down to a story's theme, like what the character learns is that that's not true. That's part of their need, is to recognize their value, to get a sense of belonging, to get a sense of community. So all of those things, the need, the misbelief tying together, that really is like the core of a story's kind of theme. Like in English class, we say like, oh, a theme is like good and evil, law and justice. As a writer, we can explore any questions that we want. But if the most commercial stories, your theme is really like what the character is learning and how the character is changing.
Yep.
So anyways, amazing job. Nice. A+.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
She loves being a good student. It might be autobiographical.
Okay. So, for my character archetype, I made the preacher guy like this person.
Yeah.
And for him, I would say that he is very charismatic,
Nice.
but yet indoctrinated into like his own like
I like
bubble
that.
of
So not someone who you would expect to come up at your door or whatever and like knock or something. Like not someone you would expect to be super like intense, because he comes off as like
as more like carefree, and able There's I think a big thing in Christianity where one person who's like a very charismatic speaker can just bring thousands around them. And so something not like that dramatic, but like that idea of that, like what he's replicating.
I love that.
And then charismatic yet indoctrinated with like an intensity personality, like an extremity about him, possibly. Again, like I do have like the religious background, so like thinking of someone who went right from like drug addiction and alcohol to like religion and like have that huge like shift, but that the intensity and the personality hasn't really shifted. It's just like it's
just like another addiction.
Yeah,
that's a really cool dynamic.
That's a great title. The great So
I love
good. That's so juicy.
And then for something that they want, I put like wanting like admiration and importance, but like the depth of that being like a feeling, an internal feeling of like wellness and wholeness. And so then with like this possible situation of like being all of a sudden in a survival situation, that this extreme survival situation would bring out in this person like their actual like self-hatred and like uncontrolled feeling like in the depths of themselves. And that's kind of the reverse of what they most desperately want, which is like feeling of wholeness and admiration.
Amazing.
Love that.
Very well thought out. I like it. I like how in depth with like the psychology of it you went. Because something that I'm learning a lot with writing too is just how much like understanding of psychology or like knowing how people tend to react to different events and like how like just everything like that deep like understanding working of people's minds, it becomes so helpful in fiction because you know to get a story that's beyond like I don't know, I learned I didn't have to do everything alone, which is a fine lesson to learn, but to get like you know into interesting questions, to explore deeper themes, like that is incredible.
Really interesting. What do you got?
All right. Mine is like the archetype role thing is spoiled rich girl. The twist, I was like brainstorming a little. Like, first of all, she was disinherited. I also wrote she's afraid of water because she's going to be on an island, so that seems convenient. But then I ended up on like she's actually this guy's like stepchild. And so she's like, and she thought that she was like, she felt like his own kid, but just getting this one island, she's like, oh shit. So it turns out that she wasn't like raised with much. So maybe when she was like 10 or so, she ended up being like, her mom married him and so she became super rich. So because of that, she doesn't have a lot of time for like bullshit. So she's a spoiled rich girl who's like extremely freaking competent. Like she would take charge in an emergency, but she completely freaks out when she breaks out a nail. She's the kind of person who talks straight and she's like maybe working on a PhD, but she never got her driver's license because she has a driver. And she wants to get the cult off the island and claim the island for herself as her inheritance.
That's really cool. So I can see like how she's MacGyvering her competency, but like she's also totally incompetent in other ways. Like, she can't drive.
Scared of water or like
this
is gonna be challenging.
She's more relatable than just like some standard rich girl.
Yeah. So one thing in the character things of just to think about, and this is again less true for memoir, but in fiction, one thing to think about when you are thinking of what a character wants is it's very helpful to have something that they want concretely. So like in terms of the external goal, you know it's a great goal if the audience can say they've achieved it. So for example, if somebody wants like freedom, okay, cool, like that's great. But in like 21st century like society, what does like freedom look like? Is it when they get their first apartment? Is it when they're financially independent? Is it when they can like fund a foundation? Or is it when they get their driver's license? You know, there's all these different things. So what we want to do in like shaping a story for that external goal is to say, okay, like the audience has to be able to tell definitively when they've gotten it and when they've achieved it. Things that are more like, oh, like they want to be able to, like they want to feel connection or they want to, et cetera, et cetera. Those can be more of like in the need realm, right? Of like the underlying subconscious, but or even just like general like overarching motivation. Like I could want to, you know, feel free of my family or free of whatever, but I think that this will give it to me. And that's your want, but then the need is actually X thing would give it to you.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. We're going to touch quickly on setting, theme, and plot, but very quick here because I don't want to overspend your time. But for setting, we're going to do setting and theme together. So for theme, what's an interesting question this idea could explore? Like what's an interesting thematic, life-centered sort of question that's kind of inherent here?
Inherent.
Yeah. I mean, you're thinking like, there could be a question you want to explore, like, you know, how much effort should we put into solving climate change? But that doesn't really go into any of our story ideas. Inherently, organically, it doesn't feel like that at the moment. You could change any of them to make it work, but... Sorry, this is just theme. So, like, what is a question that this idea could explore?
Mine is, well, I actually put it in a question. Don't we all want the same acceptance because we are human, even in uncontrolled circumstances or environments?
Wow. Oh, I like that. Yeah.
I wrote down a few, and I don't feel like anything's quite hitting it, but
That's okay,
the closest one is probably how does one extract identity and worth beyond tangible success?
Really like that. And mine are, why do people choose to follow someone, and what does it mean to be somebody's daughter?
So good.
Okay. For setting, we're going to think of just one interesting specific detail about our setting that we're thinking of. And to note, when setting, we think of like, it doesn't have to be a physical location, right? Your setting could be your cultural setting, for example. So it could be the fact that, you know, like, I don't know, a setting could be in like ping pong or whatever. And in that setting, everybody has a nickname about their kind of playing style they have, or everybody has like a tick or like a beginning ritual, or in that culture, you know, it could be a subculture as well. And just like, any kind of fun detail, real fast, let's just do that.
Okay.
And this is just like a touch on it, right?
Do you want like a detailed setting or just like one like?
Yeah, I think it could just be like one detail, one rule of the setting, or one quirk, or one, I don't know, interesting place could even be it, just making it specific. Like, you know, the house someone grew up in where we weren't allowed to close closet doors. I don't know.
That's fair. Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah. Okay. So I can start. I have two. So the first one is the cult, like a subculture one, which is the cult is an Instagram cult. So it's kind of like all about getting followers, and you get kicked out if you have less than 10,000 after 3 months. And the second is there are really annoying birds on the island. Like there are here, one could argue.
Where am I?
Nice.
Yeah.
Mine is the Inca Trail, but also the setting is kind of this group of travelers that has to come together. I'm thinking specifically about a friend who told me that there was like an elderly British man on their group who'd never hiked more than 2 miles. And he would like, they would see his toes like sticking out of the tent the minute they arrived anywhere, and he'd be like snoring like fast asleep.
That's funny.
So like a cast of kind of characters.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that. Okay, so mine is outside the preacher's evangelism mission in South Africa, which is why he got there. He's on a safari at a campsite with a bunch of strangers who don't share his worldview.
Ah. Okay, and mine is my main character lives in a dingy Albanian apartment that has one landlady with a deformed pug.
Oh, I love the
Took it-
specific
yeah, it's a good detail.
That's awesome.
I mean, aren't all pogs a little different?
Here's the run of the runs of the run.
Here's the run of the runs.
Okay, and as a last little exercise we'll do before we talk and wrap up, there's plot, right? And so generally, like, when you're looking at plot, there's two things that are really important. The first one is the genre, because if we're writing books that we want other people to read, it's besides if we just want to do something fun for ourselves. But if we're writing books that we want people to read, we have to be able to tell them what it is, and people have expectations. Like in a romance, if nobody's like kissing and then having like a breakup moment and a moment where they get back together, we're gonna be real mad. Like a romance always has to have a happy ending. In an action story, you want there to be action. In the murder mystery, someone better die. You know what I mean? And then we better figure out who killed them. Like, there's expectations. So knowing the genre is very important. And then the second one is kind of the structure and or plot beats. And there are like 50,000 million books on this, so we're not going to get into that necessarily. But generally, what happens in a plot, I think of it in two ways. So we have our genre. You could think of plot, like the plot itself, as like a problem the character has to solve, a problem the person has to solve. But really that comes into kind of like three main problems. And the first one is there's an inciting incident that changes everything. So this is Hagrid shows up and tells Harry he's a wizard and you can go to Hogwarts. That's an inciting incident. And you could say, like, it starts off the first problem Harry has to solve, which is, like, how do I fit into this world? How do I be a wizard? What is that like? You have something that changes everything. That's usually your midpoint in the middle. So that's, again, in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, when they discover that somebody is after the Philosopher's Stone. So what do I do about that issue? That's a problem, right? And then you have your all is lost moment, which is when it looks like you are worse off than you ever were. You're farther from your goal than you ever thought was possible. And it's like, what do I do? Like, how do I even survive this? And in Philosopher's Stone, that's kind of your, well, it could be.
He dies and he's like, with the stone in his hand and he's still in the bottom.
That is the 7th book, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
Spoilers.
No. The Philosopher's Stone in his hand, yeah. Like when he can't get out of the arena with Quirrell, for sure. Yeah. You could also think it's kind of when he like encounters Voldemort in the forest, and then like that, because structurally that's kind of more where it is.
Terrifying.
If you ever get into like reading a couple craft books, which I can suggest, there's typically like percentages of a story where these things pop up. Not that you have to follow those, you don't necessarily, but it can be good guidance. So like in All Is Lost, you're usually looking at your 75% mark. This is typically in a romance when like, I think of Confessions of a Shopaholic. The All Is Lost moment is when like she's on stage. I don't know if you know this movie, but like
movie.
the debt collector stands up. She's in front of live TV in a beautiful dress, and he like calls her out for having debt, and she loses like her reputation, her job, and her relationship all at once. That's the All Is Lost moment. But then we have a good like 15-20 minutes still to come where she like gets everything back again.
Okay.
So those are those three things, which I don't think we have time to necessarily go over: genre and inciting incident and what changes everything and It All Is Lost. But if we take a couple minutes and just think of like the genre and one, so one of like an inciting incident or changes everything or All Is Lost, and like try to share that. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So this is getting tough.
Yeah.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Getting beaten up.
Someone coming down the stairs.
Who was that?
Sandy.
Oh, wow, okay. Flip-flops are flopping.
A lot of flip, a lot of flop.
Can you just repeat it's like,
Yeah.
so there's the genre, then there's the, what is it?
And then there's, it could even be like one problem your character has to solve.
Okay.
But it could also be like, these are this kind of specific like tent posts of the inciting incident. So like what causes a disturbance that changes everything that they have to respond to.
Okay.
Um,
And then
the next one is your middle point, which is like what changes everything they thought they knew. And then at the end, your all is lost.
Okay.
When it looks like everything is wrong, they're so far from their goal, etc.
Is it usually recommended to do this in this order? So like, as you're devising your theme, you can pin the plot around the theme, or like.
So you can do it in any order. Honestly, when I start with a book idea, I'll typically go like, I'll take a piece of paper, divide it into 4 quadrants, and have like characters, setting, plot, theme. And first write everything I know, and then just like brainstorm and draw arrows and try to see like where can these things connect. And do that, like I do that quite a bit. Like there's a lot of brainstorming involved and just sitting and trying to think of like brainstorm and then look at it and be like, what's good here? What's interesting to me? It's not even what's good. It's like, what's interesting to me? What do I want to dig deeper into? And then you take that and then you brainstorm on it further. So eventually, like when I have some basic like character, plot, theme, setting, then I'll say, okay, now I'm going to just brainstorm character and like I'm going to go deeper. And now I'm going to brainstorm like plot events and go deeper. Killer, your turn.
Man, okay, so my genre is like a psychological thing, like the 9 Perfect Strangers, or like
Yes,
I was thinking
it has
about
the last
Albert
4
Camus'
digits,
The
but
Stranger.
we're missing the first 4
No, I've read that book.
letters.
It's so good. And then the disturbance
Which
is
she
getting
said she found the
through
report
the
that Nicole
safari
was
that's
in.
gone wrong, and where everything changes is where he goes against his morals, has the affair with the painter, and yes.
Yeah,
I like it.
I tried it and I tried on mine when I did
Mine
it too, and I was
is
like,
transformative contemporary epic. Made it up.
I like it.
Inciting incident is the mahjong loss. The changes everything is the realizing they're stuck in a group of weirdos. And then the all is lost is some type of complete failure, like an altercation with the group or someone's inability to complete the track.
Oh, I like that. I mean, very tough, but I'm like, what a good story. Yeah.
it's just
Sorry about that. Great for the narrative, though.
Yeah.
It was like a really great. The character is fine.
And mine, I'm really not sure. Honestly, like I would say it's probably like contemporary. It would be adult, maybe like book club fiction, which means it centers on like an issue and there's stuff to talk about.
And there's a hot cult leader. Hell yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then, in terms of the inciting incident, I'm thinking it could be meeting the cult leader. So like she gets to the island early, but the inciting incident is like meeting the cult leader. Or kind of discovering she like can't legally make them leave, like she can't call in the police to take them off. They won't do it. And then I was thinking like what changes everything is that like her stepfather knew that the cult was there, like has some kind of connection with the cult leader. Like he knew that this existed, and he was handing her this problem.
Nice. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, which sucks, eh?
Like when you find out that the
Or-
boyfriend was lying about something.
Yes.
I don't know that, I mean, I'm glad you think
Okay,
that. I don't
so,
necessarily find them super
Now we
cultural,
have
but
little
I find it
starts
to be
of a
like
story.
platform to bring
Obviously,
issues,
it's just the tip of
but,
the iceberg. So,
you know, you find during
like what I would do if I wanted to really write a book from this, I would keep, spending like 10-15 minutes a day doing this kind of brainstorming, right? And brainstorming can be anything. It can be like sitting and writing things down and asking myself questions like, who are the other characters involved? What did they want? How do they provide conflict? What are their relationships? Like, what could happen? Even just like, what could happen? Just brainstorming along that.
Yeah.
It could be, going on Pinterest and getting a mood board for a book and just getting things that interest you. It could be creating Spotify playlists. Like these are all things that I do that I think are so fun. And they really help. Like there's a concept called like a magical cookie in a book, and it's the reasons you want to write it. And so sometimes I'm writing a scene and I'm like, damn it, like I don't know how to make this scene fun, and I go back to my Pinterest board and I see a moment of a girl standing backstage about to go on, and I'm like, yes, like that's the moment I'm writing, like magical cookie, like that's what I want. Magical cookie is like everybody wants a chocolate chip cookie, is so good, so you want every scene to be like as good as a chocolate chip cookie for reading and writing. And then, you know, like, some people will just start writing right away, right? They're more like pantsers. They don't necessarily outline. And some people will want to do like a full outline, like chapter by chapter, here's what happens. And again, there's tons of detail you can get into on that. But it doesn't really matter. And you don't have to feel beholden to one or the other. Like, you could start writing and then stop and be like, I have no clue where this is going, and go back and try to do more of a plan.
Yeah, I mean,
the thing that I would say, so going back over those inflection points,
Yeah, fair point.
there's
I think
wanting to write a
the
book,
unfortunate thing about those
there's
talks
starting,
is the onus is on
there's finishing,
all the attendees to
and then there's rewriting and revising, and then there's feedback.
sometimes it's too much.
And
But
so
what you do, like you
today you've started, even though you haven't written any words. This is starting, right? Like, sitting down and figuring out what the story could be like, what the characters are, these story elements, that is starting it. Starting the actual writing is its own thing, and then finishing it. And finishing a book is really hard. And I always say that I was super lucky because I finished my first book when I was like 13 or 14, but that made me confident forever that I can do it, right? So I got a new story idea. I'm like, of course I can finish this book. I've done it before. No worries. Like, I got this. So you kind of have to, when you are writing your first fiction, nonfiction book, my advice would be, do whatever you can to push through. It can be 30,000 words. It can be 100,000, whatever it is. Like, you just want to finish it. So you can write crap. It's fine, right? Like, it can be whatever. Your goal is to just get to where you can write the end, because then you know you can do it. And then you go back and you worry about making it like a good story. You worry about, you know, word choice and things like that. But if you can, like, finishing it is a huge milestone, and anyone who's starting writing, that should be your goal. Just finish it. We'll start it first and then finish it.
we've always struggled.
And yeah, just to sort of end off, as I said, I wrote my first 2 books in like university and in high school, and then it was in like 2019, and I was doing my master's, and I was very, very busy in my master's. It was like a crazy intense program, and we were doing stuff all the time. But I saw this YouTube video, and it was this girl who used to be a drug addict and a drug dealer and a criminal and all this stuff, and she now has like 1 million subscribers on YouTube, and she's doing really well, and she has a degree. And she was like, she gave this sort of motivational speech, and it was like, listen, like, everybody ever has started from where you are. She's like, I had 1 million subscribers. I started with 1, you know, like, I'm writing a book. I started with 1 word, you know, like, everything starts so slow. And I heard that video, and I was like, you know what? Fuck this. Like, I want to do this. So I'm starting. Just 1 word, 1 sentence, everything you go, and then you're there. So everybody who's ever written a book has started exactly where all of us are now, at a table with some fun ideas and a thought that this could be cool. So you can do it. Everybody can do it. And I, anytime you want to talk about a book idea, show me pages, beta read, anything like that, I love it. I would love to. I am your cheerleader. Amazing. Go forth and write. That's the end.
That was super fun.
That's such a good skill.